Welcome to Marriage Underdogs Radio Show. I'm your host, Chris A. Matthews, and once again, I have a phenomenal guest. I want to introduce Tabitha Azor, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist out of New York. How you doing, Tabitha?
Doing good. Thanks, Chris, for having me.
So glad that you were able to take some time out of your schedule to be here. And I want to jump right into our show. I know that you do a lot of Christian marriage counseling. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that stands out because those that know my story, my wife and I, we got pregnant young in college, and we both went to our pastors, and our pastors did a phenomenal job praying over us. And this was, roughly about almost 16, 17 years ago. So mental health in the church is a little bit more prevalent than it was back then. Can you share with the listeners how they can still worship God, be aligned in their faith, and connect with mental health services? Can you help us bridge that gap?
Yeah, and I think that we're coming to a time where that merge is absolutely necessary because sometimes God takes us through a process for the healing to happen. And that process can be therapy. It can be different things, and the instruction for each person is different. But sometimes that can be therapy, and we can pray about things, but also go to therapy, and that's when we go through the process. And if we look like at different stories, even like in the Bible, there's always a process for people to go through before they can get to their destination. So if your destination is healing, the therapy is the process that you go through as you are praying, and the prayer is the spiritual side of it. But the therapy, especially like working with a Christian therapist, you can be able to integrate all of that, the psychological part, the emotional part, which is where most of the pain and the hurt hides, and then this bringing God into it, the spiritual perspective, putting that all together and allowing you to just find a path forward.
I love how you introduced the spirituality as a piece and not something separate. And as systemic based clinicians, licensed marriage and family therapists, we do see the sum greater than individual parts.
Mm-hmm.
What led you into the Christian based counseling? Because that is a niche within itself. You could have just said, I want to be a licensed marriage and family therapist who is a Christian, but tell us more about your decision to hone in on Christian counseling.
Yeah, I started out just trying the other way, just doing it systemically. But I find that as just God just began to send a lot of Christian people to me, and they began to ask for this. They began to ask for just specifically Christian therapy with like the spirituality integrated in it. And when I began to do that, I realized that it's very different. And me myself, like I'm a Christian and I'm not able to, like that's a very important part of my life, and integrating it, I find that there are some exercises that I do because I practice experiential therapy where it's not only just about talking through it, it's about creating new experiences for the client so that they can unlearn something and learn something new. And when we do those exercises and bring God into it, I find that the healing happens in a different way, that it's deeper, that I'm seeing fruit more quickly than I would when I work with my secular clients where God is not involved in all of that. So, and that's kind of like what guided my decision to just provide Christian counseling specifically for my clients who are open to it and do want it.
So, just to kind of recap what I'm hearing you say, providing the Christian counseling allowed you to have that permission to immediately bring God in. And with God present, you saw outcomes be reached quicker. And you saw that power of God, the Holy Spirit, work inside of the session and in the client. And
Right, right.
as licensed marriage and family therapists, we have a code of ethics we have to follow, right?
Mm-hmm.
That code of ethics is very clear, and we can't be discriminatory when it comes to who we take. Like, we can't turn a
Right.
client away
Mm-hmm.
because of religion, sexual orientation, gender, and other factors. Can you share with the listeners how you navigate providing counseling, but yet still upholding your ethical code? Because I'm sure you may get a call from a client that might be in a same-sex relationship, or they're exhibiting something that a conservative Christian might say doesn't fit, but
Right.
ethically we can't not service that person. So talk about how you navigate those waters.
Yeah, these are kind of hard to navigate, but the thing is, I feel like even then I have like some type of shielding from God when it comes to that, because like the people that have reached out, and I do work with individual clients that are in same-sex relationships. But that's not the focus of the therapy. We're focusing on the depression or anxiety or whatever life things that are going on in their lives. And if it comes up, I find that I'm okay to kind of like have space for that. But the thing is, I don't think when I do have a client, let's say a couple that shows up that is in a same-sex relationship, I don't have the proper, I don't think that I have the proper background or the proper knowledge to navigate that, because I do not specifically work with that. I don't have any experience with it. So I would just openly just share that I don't have a lot of experience there, that I would provide some referrals for them. And I do have like a network of people that are open. So I would reach out to my network and I connect them with somebody else, because I'm not the right fit for them. And that's the thing. I always do consultations, because even if you're not in a same-sex relationship, or like we may not be the right fit, and people have the right to choose the right therapist for them, because if we're not the right fit, the work will not get done efficiently. So I do consultations to make sure that being I'm working with the right clients, and that we can just have a good therapeutic relationship and there's no clash there. So yeah, that's how I would say I navigate it.
I love that you shared that process of navigating the right fit, because when a client seeks you out for therapy, they might have just read your profile, or looked at your
Mm.
picture, or they might have identified with your race or your ethnicity or your culture, or even your
Right.
gender. But getting that consultation call on the books allows you both to get a good vibe and feel. And
Right.
we know as clinicians, the alliance is the major agent of change. For
It
those that
is.
are listening out there, it shouldn't be taken as an offense if the therapist refers you to someone they might feel is a good fit. And a lot of times clients are already in an emotional place that's
Right.
very fragile when they tend to reach out for counseling. And it
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of energy and effort to reach out to a counselor. So we want those listening know that counselors understand that it's not easy to make that phone call for help. And when you make that call for help, it could be seen somewhat like the EMT services or the 911 operator. They'll say fire, medic, or police. They give you three options when you make that 911 call. So it sounds like what you're saying, Tabitha, as a clinician, you're giving your client that option like, hey, I don't mind servicing you, but there may be someone that could help you get to your goals a lot faster and
Right.
quicker.
Right.
Definitely.
Right.
Now, for the couples that you see, what would you say some of the current issues are that marriages are facing in this day and age that tend to be very prevalent in terms of what you notice in counseling sessions, the issues?
Yeah, it really depends on what stage they are in, because different couples, because I see dating, I see married, I see all kinds.
Mhm.
So it depends on what stage they are in. But I would say the most common, and we hear communication, communication, work on
Right,
communication
right.
all
Yep.
the time, but
Yeah.
it's understanding. It's really being able to get to a place where you can understand each other and then accept the person for who they are, because we change all the time. And in
Mhm.
marriages, you the person that you dated is not the same when the children come, is not the same, when you get older. So it's a matter of getting the understanding of the person and continuing to learn, um to learn the person over and over again.
Mhm.
Because if you stop dating and you stop learning the person, that's when you can live in the same house and actually grow into two different people and be roommates and just be in the house and have your own separate different lives. But the point is to continue to date and to, so I find and to just continue to learn about one another. And I find that those couples that stop seeking to understand who the person is, that's when they get stuck, and then they have to come in and just navigate through that. So I could be communicating, hey, like, this is what I need. But if you're not understanding, there's really no use in you communicating, because we're not learning, we're not hearing each other.
Absolutely. So communication is more than just the speaking and the listening. Are you understanding what your partner is saying?
Right.
And understanding can be even deeper too. I like to mention the three T's. You have tone, timing, and topic. If the tone is not right, despite what the topic or what the time is when it's being said, that could completely destroy your understanding. So
Absolutely.
really breaking that piece down was important. And you talked about how the different stages also can dictate certain issues. Walk us through. So you have the premarital dating courtship phase, you have the engaged phase, the marriage phase. What are some unique issues you might see across those three phases? So you got premarital dating, engaged, and then you have marriage.
Well, the engagement counseling, and hopefully they have done some pre-engagement counseling, and it's something that is being done now. Like, before you make the decision to propose to someone, go into therapy and ask those questions that you may not ask during the dating phase.
Right.
And that's absolutely important, because you wouldn't have spent money on that ring if you decide to not move forward with it. And that can kind of like just bring a lot of information to the table and have force you guys to have those conversations. So I would recommend pre-engagement
Pre-engagement.
counseling.
Yeah. So the
Instead
counseling
of
before you
doing,
go buy all the before you put all that
right,
ring, go get the counseling.
right. Right, because then those answers are answered before, and all of those things are done before you get engaged and you in wedding planning season, because wedding planning season is extremely stressful. A lot of arguments come up. Then that engagement counseling, that premarital counseling can look like navigating those stressors, getting on the same page. We're doing that as opposed to figuring out how many kids both of you want. Then you've already had those conversations before you got engaged, and you feel ready to be engaged, then to be married. And then once you're married, you do kind of like just preventative stuff, marriage enrichment. You check in with a therapist from time to time to make sure that you're checking on the health of your marriage at different stages. When you're about to have kids, getting into the room again to kind of like just prepare yourselves, because the body changes that happen in the woman create a lot of friction and conflict. Maybe post just the depressive, yeah, postpartum that happens sometimes for some couples, and not knowing how to navigate that. All of those things, just having the guidance and the space there, and or a way to have those conversations if you can do therapy, because therapy is not affordable for everyone, but making space and room to have those conversations in different stages is absolutely important, to make sure that your relationship is healthy and that you're not pretty much just waiting last minute to tackle a problem after it's formed and happened.
Wow, that was special what she just provided. You gave us a master class on 3 stages of marriage and when and how counseling impacts all 3 stages, right? Like the pre-engagement piece is huge before you make the investment on the ring, utilizing the engagement period to process stressors that might come up because wedding planning can be a lot. And then when you get married, keep it going with the preventative care and working through issues. And I love this quote. I got it from Magic Johnson at a conference. He said, with his team, he loves to help them by solving small problems before they become big problems. And that's the same thing in a marriage. Let's help couples solve small problems before they become big problems. Now, for those that are already married, and they may be in a season, and this is a big part of our audience, people that are married and they're in a season where it's tough and they're contemplating or they're thinking about divorce. Can you help provide some tips for those couples listening?
Yeah, so if you are thinking about divorce, my question to you is, have you done everything that is possible, you individually and you as a couple, to try to save the marriage? Have you done the counseling? Have you sat down and tried to talk to one another? Have you removed yourself from the environment that you're currently in? Because people don't realize the environment that you're in has an impact on not only on your life individually, but on your relationship. So if you're hanging out with the wrong people, if all your friends are talking, he's no good, leave him and stuff like that, or if all the people around you are encouraging you towards it and that's not what you want, have you taken the time to remove yourself from that, you know situation, that environment, for a moment, and just get with the two of you and see how you do? Because with any plant, if it's not growing in one environment and you take it out, because the soil is not rich, it's not good for it, and you plant it somewhere else in a soil that is good for it, and in spaces where people have the same mindset as you, if you take your marriage and kind of like uproot it from where it is, and or stop hanging out with some of these people temporarily and see what it does, and then plant yourself somewhere where you have mentors, you have people that want your marriage to succeed, and you have like a space to talk about these things, you remove yourself and you plant yourself there, will it make a difference for you altogether? So have you done everything that you can do individually?
Mhm.
Because it's broken marriage is two people coming together and contributing something to it that's
Shared
not
space.
working,
Yes.
right? And then together, have you done everything that you can do? And then looking at the environment as well, if you were to remove yourself from there, would it make a significant difference for you
Man,
overall?
that was great because I've never really heard it framed that way. I've studied and I've read literature around keeping your marriage safe from outside influences, but the way you put it was brilliant. You used the example of how you may need to uproot and replant the marriage in a
Right.
different type of soil that has more nurturing ingredients and mentors and different information that's helping fuel and retool the marriage.
Right.
And that was really good. Now, when you think about the show title, Marriage Underdogs, we look at roughly 10 characteristics that align with research that pose a threat to those that may be married. And one of those research bullet points are those that may have already had a prior marriage that ended in divorce. And I
Right.
know before the show we were talking, and I wanted you to share to those listening, and not just from a research perspective or a clinician perspective, but one who is a divorcee. Can you share what that grief process looks like and how to rebuild and repair for a future or current relationship that you may be in? Sometimes people transition from divorce right into a relationship, but I wanted to get that perspective from you.
That is definitely not recommended, to jump from
Right.
a divorce into a relationship, because you need that time. Um, like personally, me, I needed a lot of time to kind of like grieve this. And it took a couple of years for me to really just sit with myself. I was in therapy. Therapists do have therapists. I was in therapy
Yep.
for a while to navigate through all of that, because it takes a lot of, for me, right? It may not take you as much time as it took me, but for me, time was a very important component into this, because I needed to just be away from it, just make peace with it. All the stages of grief, I went through all of them, like the anger, why is this happening? Like how do I navigate this? The sadness, that piece took a very long time to kind of like just get through that. So just be patient with yourself and allow yourself the time to pretty much heal. I had to sit with God and kind of like just, it was like, it felt a lot for me like a wrestling, like,
Mhm.
all right, it took a while for me to accept it because of I'm a Christian and I didn't want to, especially being a Christian marriage and family therapist. I'm
Right.
like what, my marriage failed, like it's not working, it's not salvageable. um but it's not something that I had a choice in. That's not something that I could have done anything about. And I had to get to a point where, man, like I had to accept this. I have to move forward with my life. I can't be stuck in this place just because, and I did research. For me, it helped to do research. I bought some books. I read some books on, like, okay, so what does the Bible say about divorce? Like, is it like where am I, where I am right now? Is it like, how can I navigate this? How can I make peace with this overall? And it for me, it was a long process just because of that acceptance piece. I couldn't accept it because it was hard to think, man, like in the work that I'm doing and I'm helping other couples and God, like, man, like really.
Right.
But
Like, why me?
getting to,
Yeah.
right. And getting to that place of acceptance was like the best thing that I could have done for myself because then I felt free. So
Hmm.
I would say take some time and just figure out what you need, figure out who you've become. Because when you're in a marriage and your life is so mingled with somebody else for so long, and then it's gone, you have to rediscover yourself. You have to figure out what you like. You have to figure out who you
How many
are.
years was your marriage?
About 7 years.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, and they say that's usually kind of that timeline as well. That
Yeah.
when things start to restructure, and for those that are listening, ideally, when two people get married, they don't think about or contemplate divorcing, right? That's not
Ideally.
something on the table. But there are situations, and what I find in my work, and Tabitha, you do comment, one area in particular is safety. When you
Mm-hmm.
have abusive partners that are unwilling to do the work on themselves,
Right.
and then you have repeated incidences of infidelity or a partner that may have chosen just not to be monogamous. And you have incidences where the entire family system may be at harm if there's a partner who refuses to get help for an addiction or doesn't provide, and you have children or a family that you're raising together. So as a marriage counselor, I'm not seeking to promote or support divorce, but at the same time, we do have a right to all of our clients in terms of making sure that we keep a safe environment. And can you talk
Right.
about moments in relationships where couples counseling is not recommended or it may not be a good fit until both partners first and foremost get some individual help?
Yeah, couples counseling is done with two people that are ready to do the work. So if there's any outside, like other relationship that is going on, if it's not safe for either, so exactly what you said, if there's no safety, then I'm not gonna work. It wouldn't be ethical for me to work with you to try to keep you in a space that is not safe for you. So it's not just about saying, hey, I'm coming in, we want to work on the marriage, but the actions also have to prove it. You have to be willing, if there's another relationship, to cut that off, because we can't do couples counseling because that's something that's coming directly and attacking the marriage that we're trying to piece together. So until those things are in place, it's couples therapy is not going to work. And we can't in good conscience just move forward with that work. So individual wouldn't be necessary before that's done.
And I'm glad you used that word, ethical consideration, making sure that it's safe for the client and for the therapist, because therapists, we get involved in what we do. We care about our clients. We're trained to cut it off because we have our own lives as well. But at the same time, we still value our work. We value our clients. We want to do right by our clients. And we can't ethically do that if we see that harm is taking place. It's really
Right.
challenging to be an advocate for a relationship that is harmful to one or both partners. Now, Tabitha, I know you're out in New York. You're with the NYC Healing Center. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Talk about your practice and the process that clients can go through if they're listening and they're in the area, or they want to get some services from you.
Yeah, my website is nychealingcenter.com. They can go on the contact page and schedule a consultation from there. But I provide virtual services. I have another clinician in the practice who provides in person if it's needed. And yeah, that's how they can reach me.
Definitely. And Tabitha, I really am glad that you took time to come on today, because there's always this thought that if you are a Christian, then the only people you can see are a pastor or a clergyman or woman. Have you seen that since you've been working as a Christian-based counselor, you've helped liberate Christians that may have only thought they could go to a church representative for help?
Yeah. Like I would say 80% of my clients are Christians, and we do some great work together. And the thing is, I think most people are afraid that when you say Christian counseling, that they're going to come in and you're going to throw scriptures at them all day. But I'm a clinician first. I'm a clinician and a Christian, or I'm a Christian and a clinician. So the bulk of the work is really psychological, and I use all the tools that I learned in school, but it is guided by God. It is kind of like, and the spirituality is integrated in it, because you can't just ignore your spiritual side, because it's a part of you. It's a huge part of who you are. So
Absolutely.
mhm.
It's one of the dimensions of wellness. So that would look like a greater invitation to maybe open and close with prayer.
Yeah.
Do you lead the prayer?
Yeah, I do. I pray for them because this is a space for them to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And not everybody is comfortable with that. So I ask, of course, for permission. If they do want it, then I pray for them in my own time, and also beginning of the session. And I invite God in to come and just work with us, because we see him as a partner in the work that we're doing. Because sometimes a word of knowledge that I get about something, and I'm constantly being guided in my sessions, like, mention this or bring this up, an idea comes to my mind, and it's exactly what the client needed to hear, or the direction that we needed to go to. And it's only God like that can do that. And that happens too in my secular sessions, but it's just I can't kind of like just bring that out, like this is where this direction is coming from. But with the Christian clients, I find that it's extremely helpful to have just God alongside us, just walking with us as we do the work together.
I agree. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but would you be willing to close out our interview with a prayer to the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Father, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for each and every person that is listening, the people that will be listening. I just lift them up before you. I pray for strength, and I pray, Lord God, for the boldness to be able to step forth and seek out their therapist if they need to. I pray that you will allow this conversation to set them free from anything, to bring clarity, to bring wisdom, to bring understanding, to answer some of the questions that they may have. I pray over Chris, God, that you will just hold him as he does this work that is impacting a lot of people's lives. And I pray, God, that each and every person that you will guide and direct to this podcast will find exactly what they need from it at the exact right time that they need it. In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name, amen. Tabitha, I've really appreciated your time. I feel uplifted. I just feel like there's a connection. You really are doing God's work. And I just thank you once again. Can you, once again, just before we go, just provide your email, or excuse me, website to the listeners? I just want to make sure if they're in the area, they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, nychealingcenter.com. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well with the same name, NYC Healing Center. So,
Tabitha, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. God
thank you
bless
so
you.
much for having me.
Thank you. All right. For those that have been listening, you've been tuning into the Marriage Underdogs radio show. I'm your host, Chris A. Matthews. Please, you can catch us on podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Please subscribe, like, and we look forward to having you back for another episode.